Better with my coffee. I have like one coffee day if I get coffee and I don't even drink coffee. I don't know if it's 4 days, but full of germs. Like, no, I need to. No. My body was like relying on it though. I'm feeling tired. No, like I need to lean on it. Yeah, I really good sort process.
Good morning, everybody. I can't hear you. I cannot hear you. Good morning, everybody. Okay, I'll just 2 decibels higher. You can do better than that. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to today's Impact Series workshop. We have a very special guest who has a very special presentation planned for everybody today. And I'd like you, without further ado, to welcome Alexina Prather. Please put your hands together for her.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for coming here today. I know it's a Friday. I know we're headed into the weekend, but I'm really excited to be here today and to talk with all of you. I'm going to be talking about myself a lot today, in different capacities and different areas. But before I dive into all of that, I would love to have 3 volunteers, and I'm going to need you to come up and come to the front. So, all right, we'll go with you in the back, and then you right there. Okay. Promise it's very low stakes, but. All right. So today, we're going to be talking a lot about clothing and sustainable fashion and different things around the way that we present ourselves with our clothes. So if you all 3 will come up here. If you could, I don't know your name, so if you could just tell me your names and introduce yourself. I'm Riley. Nice to meet you.
I'm Robbie.
Robbie.
I'm Melissa.
Melissa. All right. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about a clothing item that you're wearing. You can just kind of answer it casually. If you don't know the answer, no pressure or anything. So this shirt that you're wearing, Riley, do you remember when you purchased it and where you purchased it?
Yes. I purchased it in, I would say it was roughly around like between September and December.
Okay, so it's pretty new. You
Yes,
bought it this
it's
year.
pretty new.
Okay.
And I purchased it from the mall.
Lots. Awesome. And do you know if you've ever like mended it? Has a button fallen off? Have you ever like adjusted it in any way? No. Okay. And does it hold any like significance in your life? You purchased it at Loft, so it wasn't like a gift or anything, but like, is it your favorite shirt? Anything? No. Okay. And how often would you say you wear it?
Like once a week at most.
Okay, once a week. That's pretty good use. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. Great, Robbie, right? All right, let's go to your shoes. Switch it up a little bit. Do you know where you purchased them? How long ago that was? Kind of the story behind the shoes.
I got these at a store called Green Cross.
Green Cross. Okay.
I think maybe 2 years ago, and these are the kind of shoes I get to school because we have to wear uniform at high school.
Oh, in high
So,
school. Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so I've got those things.
Okay.
I've got this, yeah.
So you wore them like a
Pretty much
lot,
every single
like
day.
every day. Okay.
Yeah.
Bodies. Awesome.
Yeah,
And they fit you well. They're comfortable.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
those. Okay. Do you have more than one pair of those then, or? No.
You used to back in school, but
Yeah.
I just had these one pair, something like that, yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. And Melissa, you're wearing a beautiful dress today. Can you tell us a little bit about the backstory of your dress?
Well, I took it from my friend's closet this morning.
Nice. I love that.
So I'm
Recyclable.
not quite sure where she got it,
Okay.
but I see her wear it often.
Right.
So there's that. it's the first time I'm wearing it.
Right.
But
Okay,
yeah.
that is perfect. I love that example. So you took it from her closet. Does she know you're wearing it? Do you
Yeah.
think? Okay, she knows you're wearing it.
I didn't steal it.
Yeah. And so we don't know where it's from or anything, but
I think
it's,
the tag says.
yeah,
it,
the
but-
tag probably says, but okay, great. Are there any other clothing items that y'all are wearing that do hold really big significance that you want to share? Maybe a necklace or an item? You don't have to, just like opening it up for if you're wearing anything.
Bracelets are
the
pretty
bracelet?
sentimental, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Where do they come from? What's their,
It's
Story.
also, you know, a little story, like some are made, some were gifts, so
Yeah.
like, just think of it like that.
and you wear them every day?
Yeah.
Wear them every day. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. What about your shoes? Are those your friends too, or those?
No, those are mine.
Those
Those are mine. I don't know. I got them back in December because I had a pair of Air Forces.
Yes,
And I destroyed them.
Right.
So I wanted a new pair and I basically wear them every day. So they're the most comfy shoes I own, in my opinion.
it's like a staple in your closet.
Pretty
You wear them
much.
often and
Yeah.
got a new pair. Okay.
Yep.
Great,
Mhm.
great.
My cross is from my 13th birthday. It was
Wow.
a gift from my mom and my grandma, my grandma. It's dated German. The ring is for my graduation. It's a Trinity ring, so it represents mom, dad, and daughter.
Wow.
And then this bracelet that I'm wearing is the Cayman Link. I'm from the Cayman Islands. So it is both, and this was a part of my mom's anklet.
Wow.
So
So those are probably items you wear like every day. You don't
I never take them off.
Yeah. Okay.
more so because I'm afraid to lose them.
Okay.
So if I don't take them off, then
Yeah.
I don't lose them.
Okay. Great. Well, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My outfit?
Yeah.
Right. I had a feeling someone was gonna ask.
Yeah.
So my outfit today, this is a secondhand romper. It's from an online shop called Prather. So it's all secondhand clothing. I purchased it. I'll talk a little bit actually about Thread Up in the presentation, but it was purchased secondhand and I absolutely love rompers. I think they are the answer to all the problems of professional clothing for women. So I wear this a lot. It's a staple in my closet. And then my shoes were recently purchased at a thrift store in Argentina. So I was there in January and I bought these there because I didn't really pack the right shoes for the trip. I didn't really have anything that was like flat and also like not a flip flop. So
Yeah,
I bought
yeah.
them while I was there and I'm actually really happy with them. So they're pretty new, but both are that. And then my jewelry I wear all the time. They're kind of staples, at least around my hands. I switch up the earrings, but yeah, thanks for asking. Great. All right. Thank you so much. So I promise that will make sense as I continue with the presentation, but the goal in that was really to get us just like thinking about the clothes that we're wearing. Sometimes they can mean a lot. Sometimes it's just a simple black t-shirt. But this will all kind of weave in throughout the presentation and make sense. So thank you to my volunteers for offering while not knowing what you were going to have to say yes to. So those are just some of the questions. Oh, it might be doing that. It's okay. Oh no, it's working. Okay. All right. So this is just a very quick agenda so you can kind of settle in and get a sense for the day today. I'm going to talk a little about my business called Shop Alexina. We're going to talk about social entrepreneurship, sustainable fashion, clothing consumption, the fashion revolution that's happening. I'm going to go over a lot of resources for you all. And then at the end, we're going to do kind of a workshop and group discussion. Should I point it in a certain way? Just be on the screen. Okay. It's okay. I think. There we go. All right. So, very high overview, kind of high level things. I am a huge fan of all things denim, all things thrifted, vintage, upcycled, sustainable, swapped, creative. There's a lot of things that I love in terms of this kind of like area of fashion and clothing. But a little bit more about myself. I am from Massachusetts originally. I'm from the western part of the state. So if anyone knows about UMass Amherst or Amherst College, it's a college town. There's 5 universities in the area. So surrounded by a lot of different education and universities in Amherst. I went to Northeastern University for my undergraduate. There I studied human services, which is really, I kind of hate the name because everyone's always like, what is that? It's not really a well-known degree, but it's typically a precursor to social work. A lot of people go on and get their master's in social work. A lot of different things to do with like counseling or therapy. So I studied human services at Northeastern. I am not Spanish, but I'm constantly trying to learn the Spanish language. That's what that's there to represent. I studied it in high school. I recently went to Argentina to take classes there. I try and use it and practice it in Miami, but I am working on that. So if anyone else wants to practice Spanish with me, I would appreciate that. And then about 4 years ago, I moved to Miami to go to the University of Miami for my master's. I have a master's in sustainable business. And I was there when COVID hit. So I was in this great program. I was on campus at this beautiful campus. Really excited to be there with palm trees after having been at Northeastern with all the snow in Boston. And COVID hit midway. So it was a little rough to graduate May of 2020. And, you know, the whole world is figuring out what jobs look like, who's hiring, who's not hiring. But I eventually found this organization called Access Helps, where I work now. So everything I'm going to talk about today with Shop Alexina is very much a side hustle. I love it. It's a passion project, but I do have a 9-to-5 job. So I work for an organization that helps local business owners in Miami, helps them find grants, resources, training, assistance, whatever it may be. We want them connected to resources. We want them to know about it. And it's available in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. So really local to the business owners that might have 5 employees or less, might be a single entrepreneur, might be under a certain revenue mark. So not really large businesses, but really kind of those mom and pop shops that we have in Miami. I'm a Taurus. I love being a Taurus. Just wanted to add that there. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. We have some other Tauruses in the room, maybe. I don't know. Some people snapping, but great. All right. So Shop Alexina, again, this is not my 9-to-5, but it's something that is a huge part of my life and something that I've really been working hard at for the past few years. But it really started out as a creative outlet for me. I grew up going to a Waldorf school. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Waldorf education, but the summary is that I learned to knit and crochet before I learned to read. So they're very focused on being outside, being active, learning to do things with your hands. They did teach me how to read eventually, but it took a little bit longer. So I've always loved to sew. I've always loved to create and do things with my hands. And I was living in New York City before I moved to Miami. I saw this woman walking down the street. She had on these great pair of jeans, and around like the bottom of the hem, there was like a little piece of kind of like fabric to give it a little something different to make them unique. And her like whole outfit, the way she was walking and presenting herself, I was like, she spent like $400 on those jeans. Like you could just tell it was in New York. She was fancy. But I was like, I could make those. Like I could do that. I own jeans. I own fabric. I have a sewing machine. I could make that. It wouldn't cost me $400. It would cost me $10 maybe to do. So it just got me thinking about kind of ways that I could do small things to clothes to make them a little bit more interesting and more unique. But I was living in New York. I was living in a closet. My apartment was tiny. I don't know if my bedroom was even legal. There was a window, but it was small. It was New York City living. I didn't have my sewing machine. I didn't have space to like do anything really kind of creative. So when I moved to Miami, my apartment grew in size a little bit and I had some room. And so I brought my sewing machine with me and I started buying secondhand denim jackets to start to upcycle them. I learned a little bit more about the term upcycling. But it wasn't meant to be a sustainable fashion brand. I didn't go into it thinking I want to buy secondhand because that's good for potentially the environment and, you know, reducing waste and not creating anything new. It was more so to save money, honestly. I was like, if I buy this jacket used versus buying it new and I add something to it and go to sell it, I'll be spending less money than if I bought a new jacket. The other thing, which I don't know if anyone's wearing a denim jacket today. You don't have on denim? I don't think so, or even pants, but I personally, denim, I like it worn. Like a new denim jacket is obviously really nice and great, but having one with like the kind of worn elbows or that feel of vintage or that kind of like thrifted experience is what I prefer for a jacket. So it all just kind of came together in terms of why I started buying secondhand. And then I really started learning more about setting up a business and starting a clothing brand and a line because I was getting really excited about it. I registered my LLC. I was getting more formal. And I realized that I didn't want to start a clothing brand. I did and I didn't. Like I didn't want to create more and I didn't want to create excess and I didn't want to have a huge impact on the environment. But it also all kind of happened like I didn't really necessarily plan it that way. I was spending time in thrift shops because I was looking for cheaper jackets to start with. But then I found this campaign called Secondhand September, and it was run by Oxfam, and I just kind of came across it on Instagram. And I was like, you know what, I can do that. I'm in thrift shops anyways. I can switch to buying secondhand. I can try this out for September. And I found that it really wasn't that challenging for me at that time. I also wasn't necessarily shopping too much in general, but I committed to a month and it was pretty easy. So I decided to think more about it, do more research. And then I found another campaign that was like 3 months long. And I was like, okay, I could do that one. And for me, it was helpful to have these little, like, even it's just putting your name on a piece of paper, it's not necessarily binding. Like no one knows if I go buy a new shirt. But it was helpful to know I was part of like a larger effort and there was like a campaign around it. So I decided to go fully secondhand and I dove like headfirst into the sustainable fashion world. I started doing more research. I started thinking more about how, as I build and create this brand, could this be a part of it and an aspect of what I wanted. So this photo is, I'm fast forwarding a little bit. This is like in 2022, but I was at a clothing swap, which I'll talk about in a bit, which was a really awesome way. Well, actually, we had an example. Melissa today swapped with a friend, but I was at a clothing swap. I knew from head to toe my outfit was like intentionally created. It was secondhand, or I have a Patagonia dress on, which was a gift. Patagonia is quite an expensive brand, but they're really awesome. And I was wearing shoes very similar to Melissa's as well that I had worn for years that I needed a new pair and I was able to find a used pair online. I bought the same shoe because I knew it was a staple in my closet. So I just kind of looked in the mirror. It's a little bit of a cheesy photo, but it was a really proud moment for myself where I was like, wow, I've come a pretty long way here. And it took me 3 years to get there. And this is like a very personal decision to, make all these changes. And it's not for everyone, but I was really excited. And it was a moment for me where the whole brand and the whole kind of like purpose of why I decided to make these changes made a lot of sense. So now going backwards a little bit, sorry. Oh, there. Okay. I think it's just a little delayed. So I started making all these jackets. I started buying these jackets in thrift stores and I started creating these different like designs that thank you so much, that I was really excited about and I thought were really fun. But then I realized that my business model was completely flawed. I was spending all this time finding a jacket, finding a pattern, finding a patch, finding something, adding to it, making it unique. And then I was trying to sell them online, or I was trying to go to vendor events and, like pop-up shops and things like farmers markets where you can set up a tent. And I was hoping that the perfect customer who was that size, who wanted that style, was going to walk in, see the jacket and buy it. And I'm putting a lot of time and effort into these, so the price point is not necessarily low. I'm going to events where people might be buying a sandwich or a candle or, something that isn't necessarily a very high price point for them that they might stumble upon and be like, oh, I really want this jacket. So my whole approach to it was great for the creative side and for I want to build something and I want to explore and these are my own designs. But then I couldn't find anyone to buy them. And like this Frida jacket, people loved it. It's Frida Kahlo. A lot of people have a strong connection with her or are interested in her work. And then they'd be like, okay, well, do you have this in a small? And I'd be like, no, there's only one. And I thought that was like the amazing part and the unique part, that there was one jacket and you owned it. But it required that I find that one person who was that size and wanted that jacket. So I made all these jackets, and then they sat in a closet, and I would take them to these events, and it was exhausting. And I would set up the tent and get all ready to sell them. And it was just, they weren't going anywhere. You know, I would sell one or two every once in a while, but they weren't flying off the shelves. So I'm working on all of this, and then COVID hits, and everyone all over the world had to figure out what that meant for them. And there was huge adjustments in life, and you know, it was a really, really hard time for everyone. There's also was a huge shortage of masks. So I knew I had all this fabric. I had a lot of t-shirts. I would do some jackets where I would like, say it was like a Miami Heat t-shirt. I would cut the t-shirt and then I would put that on the back of the jacket, but I would save the extra material because I'm like, I'm going to do something with this someday. So I had a ton of cotton t-shirts that just had like a square cut out of the front and were sitting in my closet. So I started making masks out of cotton t-shirts, out of denim, out of other material that I had. And I started offering them for free to friends and family because I knew there was such a shortage. And I also, at that time, we didn't know as much about the N95s and the different quality and what you really should be wearing. So people had people had scarves. It was like anything worked as long as your mouth was covered. And I started offering them for free. And then I absolutely was driving myself insane because I had all these masks to make, and everyone said yes. Everyone was like, I'll take one. And I was spending all this time making these masks, which I wanted to do. And I wanted to, give back during a really scary time. But I also was spending all of my time making masks. So I started accepting donations, and then I started charging for them out of just a flat rate of $5 per mask. It was very low. But I made over 800 masks over the course of those, early few months of the pandemic. And I put that money through my business, and I had started it through denim jackets, but then I realized, okay, there's other ways that I can create things. There's other products. There's other ways I can kind of pivot my business. I'm not making masks now, but it allowed me to kind of expand beyond that like narrowness I had in the beginning of this is what I create for my line. So today it looks very different from how it started. I'm also only 3 years in, which is still very, very new and exciting, but I have completely shifted my model, and it's a custom order model. So now instead of creating a jacket and hoping I find that perfect person who fits it and wants it, that person has to find me first, and then I create the jacket. So it's a very different process. It's more collaborative. This jacket here is a woman who owns a business called Posh Palma. So she wanted red, she wanted palm trees, she wanted a very, very custom design. And so we created it together. It took a few months, but it fits her and it's what she wants. And she envisioned it, and she put a lot of love and care and attention into it as well. So hopefully it's something that she keeps in her closet for a long time. This was a gift for a friend. 2 friends kind of came together to give it to her. She loves the planet. They had the shirt already, so they asked me to find, this was like a shirt that says Save the Planet. They asked me to find the jacket and to kind of put it together. And then there's a custom like engraving of the 3 best friends' name like on the inside. So these are very like personalized items. I've done things for brides, for certain events, it's really kind of shifted the whole model. I'm not making as many jackets, and I'm still doing some that I love, like for my own self or that I want if there's a vision there, but it's much more shifted in terms of like how I approach the entire business. And then I've expanded a bit beyond just the jackets. Someone gave me a box. I swear it was like a massive box. I rarely had space for it in my house, but denim pants that had holes in it, that had rips, that really couldn't be worn. And she was like, do you want this? Like, could you do something with this? And I was like, yes. So I've been cutting it up and making bucket hats. I'm making bags out of it. So finding ways to still use denim as like a base, because I think it's a really incredible fabric and it's very durable. And we're going to talk about landfills in a bit. I don't think denim should ever go into the landfill. It was created to last. So it might be pants that have, a massive hole here that you can't fix, but you can cut that up and make something else out of it. rather than kind of throwing it out. So that's the whole kind of mindset I have now, which I'm really enjoying and is really fun and still very creative. And these are just a few other elements of the brand that I've tried to instill. I do some shipping because if the person is not based in Miami, obviously I have to get the jacket to them. So I try and do that with like a box that I already have in my house because I'm not doing too many. I don't have too many orders. So I try and ship mindfully. And then these are Trader Joe's bags for tags whenever I do events. Trying to not buy any new like plastic or any of those like machines to add tags to the items. And just adding little things so that if it ever gets passed on to someone else or a new owner, they know that it was kind of created with that intentionality and handwork involved. All right, so before I move on, does anyone have any questions about kind of what I just went through? I know it was a lot. There's been a lot of kind of like pivots. I'd be happy to chat with anyone afterwards about actually like starting a business and the logistics of that. It's an amazing thing, but it's also something you really learn as you go. So there's obviously like resources and support, but then it's, if you ever start your own business, it's really your own business. So it's kind of that whole process of figuring out how it works for you. Yes.
Does denim have like a special meaning to you? Like, is there like something like in your childhood that like made
Yeah.
you want to choose denim?
So thank you for that. It's more about the actual like durability of it and like sewing with it, because you can cut it up and do so many different things with it. It works really well with like, I think patches and like things on top of it. And then the other thing, which isn't necessarily specific to me, but it's been around and in season or in fashion forever. Like denim, it might look different or the cut of the pant changes or, you know, it might shift, but like denim is a staple and I don't think it's going anywhere. So I think that's part of it, is that I just like really love how much we use it. But then I did find, this is just a side note, I found like a drawing that I made in like 8th grade that my mom saved when I went to this like fashion camp, and I had made this whole like denim line. So little me in 8th grade had a vision for this and I didn't remember it until she was like, you made this in 8th grade. So maybe there's something that I, you know, really resonate with, but it's more about like the durability of it and like the use. Yeah.
So I've had multiple jeans over the years, and I have a few jeans that don't fit me anymore, and they're sitting in my closet because I haven't donated them yet.
Yeah.
But is there a better place than Goodwill that I should send them, like a better place?
Yeah. So yes and no, I would say. The whole, we could talk for 2 hours about donating your clothes, and that's a whole topic. If the item's in good condition and it just doesn't fit you, but there's not holes in it or stains or pilling or anything, a secondhand shop like Goodwill is a really great option. There's a lot of large ones. There's Salvation Army, there's Goodwill. I personally like Goodwill a little bit more because of the mission they have around employing individuals with disabilities, and they do a lot of impact beyond just the secondhand space. But they're also massive, and some people have, like, there are faults too to, you know, how large they are. Because a lot of people give to Goodwill where there's not necessarily, it's of quality where they would put it on the shelf, and that item is going straight to the trash. So I think that's the thing that a lot of people need to learn is like, I can't just take I go through my whole closet, everything I don't want, even if it's not in good condition, I put it all in the same box and I give it to Goodwill. I think that's like one of the biggest learnings is like, they're gonna throw that. That's the same as you putting it in the trash can, which is fine. If it needs to go in the trash can, that might be where it needs to go. But like the thought that, oh, I'm donating it and it's gonna go on to someone else isn't always the case, because Goodwill has to throw out a lot of the donations that they get. If you know of a local church or boutique or small thrift shop and it's in good condition, I always like to give them there first, just because, you know, it's probably going directly to someone. There's some great ones in Miami. I don't know as many up here, that I'm sure there are ones that exist, but I think that is always a little bit better because, you know, it's likely not going to go sit in a storeroom for 4 months before it gets into the next closet or into the next hand, the next person. Did that help?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot in that, so.
So you said like the jacket takes months to make, right? So how do you make sure you're fairly like, compensated for months of work?
Yeah, and it depends on the actual like item. Sometimes the amount of time it takes is actually about just like finding the jacket. So it's not actually me like sitting there working on it. Because I've switched this more like custom model, I can't just like go to a thrift shop and hope I find they want a dark denim jacket and a size small. Like I'm not gonna find that if, I mean, maybe I will, but like I'm gonna spend hours or days looking for that. So I do a lot of online secondhand shopping now, which I'll share those resources again at the end, but so sometimes it's about just like the sourcing of like, oh, and they want this one patch or they want this color. So sometimes it's about just like gathering the materials. But I always share the price up front. If there is any like hand embroidery, that's like an added cost versus like me using the sewing machine. So they're not cheap items, but they're also things that someone really like know they can't buy somewhere else, you know? So that's something that I learned too, because when I created all those 30 jackets that then were just like sitting, I started bringing the price down and down and down because I was like, maybe if I make these cheap enough, someone will buy it. But that wasn't the right answer. You know, I put a lot of work into it, and I just had to kind of shift the model. So it's been a journey, but pricing is definitely something that people have also told me people have been like, this is too cheap, or, you know, you need to learn how to like actually account for your time. So it's been a process, but yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yes, during your transition from going to these events and you just finding something, making your designs to transition into your ideal customer to find you, what techniques do you use to do that switch? What
Yeah.
techniques do you use to be out there for your target market?
Yeah. So luckily, because I'd like done the pivot, I had a lot of photos of like things that I could specialize in. So I'd done the t-shirt on the back. I'd done the embroidery. I'd done the more bride like jacket. So I was able to kind of pull all those photos together, and on my website now and on social media, I'm able to say like, want a jacket like this, or, you know, like I have examples of things that I've actually created that aren't like stock images or someone else's designs that I can use. So I don't have as many like orders, I would say, but then I had more inventory just like sitting. So it's kind of like a different approach, but I'm also trying to make those like smaller price point items like the bucket hats or something that is like not size specific, a bag, to compensate for, I won't make as many jackets, but I'll have something that is always like available or available for sale that is like not custom made. So it's kind of the combination, but it has been a process. And then a lot of it is like people who know I'm doing this. So I have a few like friends of friends and people who have like reached out for customs online. So there has been some where I'm like, I don't know this person. I've never met them. They live in, you know, Ohio or wherever, and they find me. But there also is a lot of like people who are in my network who are like, oh, I have a friend who needs a jacket, or, you know, it's like word of mouth. So it's a combination, but I'm still working on it, honestly. So I'll let you know when I figure out the holy grail of it. But great. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about social entrepreneurship, and then we are going to have a 10-minute break or so before we kind of dive into the next piece. All right. So does anyone recognize these brands, and can they tell me what they have in common potentially? Yeah.
They both have they have a similar model where if you buy one, they give one. And if you do something worth the same amount,
With it,
more,
right.
so it's a social impact. Creative.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I love social entrepreneurship, and it has to do with these two brands. But I do want, if anyone has a different opinion afterwards, or they have like a discussion or question they want to ask after, please like feel free to raise that, because this is like my experience learning about these brands, but it doesn't mean it's the same for everyone. So when I was at Northeastern University, I went in, declared anthropology, I went undeclared, I declared international affairs, I went undeclared. I finally found human services. I stayed in that major, but then my third year, I did 5 years at Northeastern. In my third year, I took an elective course on global social entrepreneurship, and I didn't think that much of it. I was like, I need to fill my coursework. This sounds interesting. So I took this course, and after the first class, I was sold. I was like, this is the answer. This is what I want to do. I don't know if other people have that experience. I know we all are in this room because we do love the concept of social entrepreneurship, whatever it might mean to us. But from the moment it was like kind of taught to me in an academic setting, I was like, yes, this makes sense. And I was looking at the syllabus for the course, and I saw Tom's. We were going to do a case story on Tom's. And I was really excited because I own Tom's. I liked the model. I was kind of like, oh, that's something I own. You know, it'll be cool to learn more about the business, thinking it's going to be positive, thinking the buy one, give one model. You know, I really support Tom's. The topic comes up on Tom's, the class comes up, and immediately the professor's teaching it in a way that it's like, this is what you're not supposed to do. And I'm like floored. I'm like, what? Like, Tom's is great. Like, I think Tom's is an amazing company. And what he explained to the class is that the early days of Tom's, Tom, literally that's the name of the founder, decided he wanted to do this buy one, give one model. He starts creating these very simple, basic shoes, canvas, flat. There's not a lot that goes into the shoe. It's pretty standard. He's charging $60 US. I don't know what they're costing now, but at the time it's charging $60 US for this shoe. But you think as a consumer, okay, I'm really buying this for $30 because I'm buying it for $30. I get to keep it, but then someone else is getting a shoe for $30 if you split it that way. So the buy one, give one model. Okay, I'll buy that for $60. I'm giving back. You know, that's how he's marketing his product. And it worked. A lot of people bought shoes. And then Tom is taking the shoes to give. There's videos, which I tried to find one online and it's not available anymore because I think the company tried to take it down. But there's videos of Tom's in the early days, and he's with his mom and his friends, and they're in a van, and they're in some country where they've deemed that there's kids who need shoes. And they're literally opening the car door, and they're going up to random kids, and they're, you know, there's all this like footage of them giving shoes. And some people might look at it and think, this is amazing. These kids need shoes. Tom's giving them shoes. This is great. But in reality, these kids don't need canvas shoes. They need likely boots. They need something that does well with mud or trash, or something that might not be an area that's potentially that clean. So a canvas shoe might be great and helpful for them and exciting, but it's not what they actually like need. There's not a need there. There also is likely someone in that area who's trying to sell shoes locally, who has a business that is around selling shoes. And now obviously there might be people who can't afford to buy those shoes, but there's a local economy of shoes there. And Tom comes in and gives everyone shoes. That's going to disrupt that local economy. So Tom's got a lot of heat for this, but Tom's also got a lot of good press for this of the buy one, give one model. In contrast, we have Warby Parker. Is anyone wearing Warby Parkers or aware of Warby Parker? Yeah. So Warby Parker has a similar model, but does a few things differently that create some really amazing results. So prescription glasses can cost $300, $400 US. They can get quite expensive for people to buy. And it's a necessity. People need, you need to be able to see. A lot of people need prescription glasses. Warby Parker says, we're going to disrupt this. We're going to create a model where you're starting at $95 US. There's things you can add on. You can add on the blue light. You can add on reflectiveness. There's like all these things. If you get it with a wire and not the basic frames that are shown here, it goes up in price, but you can get a pair of prescription glasses for $95 US. They're not promoting their social impact model. They're not blasting all over campaigns all over Times Square that say like buy one, give one. They promote it and it's available on their website about the impact that they do, but it's not the main selling point for their product. And what they do differently is that they give eyeglasses. So there's a buy one, give one model, but they always partner with a local organization that's already providing eye care. So they're giving more tools and resources to someone who is locally in a community, is accessible to that space, is not gonna leave, you know, they're there. They're not gonna, it's not like Warby Parker comes in and leaves. And they're just uplifting that organization to provide more. So this like blew my mind because there was a lot that I took away from this personally in terms of social entrepreneurship and what it really means. And this slide just be like chat this very it eventually goes kind of like wakes up. All right. So this is a screenshot from Warby Parker's website from like 2 or 3 days ago. So this is current language. Over 1 billion people around the world need glasses, but don't have access to them. To address this problem, we work with partners worldwide. For every pair of glasses purchased, a pair is distributed to someone in need, and they do this in 2 ways. They empower people to administer basic eye exams and sell glasses. So they're giving that extra level of the eye exam of getting the person in the right pair of glasses and not necessarily just saying, here are glasses. And they directly give vision care and glasses to those in need with cross-sector partnerships. So they know someone is already doing this and they'll give them extra glasses to provide. They've kept this model since day one of their business. Tom's, this is a screenshot from Tom's, and they now nowhere on their site does it talk about buy one, give one. So they've completely shifted to a 1/3 of profits are given to mental health services. So they're not even in the shoes area anymore. They're not buying and giving shoes. You're still doing good with your dollars when you support Tom's. 1/3 of that price is going to mental health services, but this is a completely different shift from the buy one, give one model that Tom started with. And Tom is no longer there. Tom has left the organization. They've gone through a lot of like staff changes and done a lot of like work to get to this point. When I was in my master's a few years ago, they were really focused on gun violence, and they were like really, I don't honestly know how often this topic changes for them. They might be set on mental health now and stick to that. But about 2 years ago, it was gun violence and bullying. They were focused on those. So it might rotate, but they've really shifted to this kind of, 1/3 of profits. So what I learned, and then I want to hear if anyone has kind of reactions to this, is that number one, this consumer due diligence part is really very important. So I love Tom's. I had Tom's. My mom had, my whole family had Tom's. We're all wearing Tom's, and Tom's isn't a bad brand. It's you can and should support and wear them. I don't know if anyone's wearing Tom's today, but they are still doing good. But doing good isn't always good enough. So I think a lot of times they hid behind but we're doing good and we're providing and we're, there's impact and it's good. And it's like, okay, it's good, but it could be better or it could be more impactful. You can do good in a wrong way, if that makes sense. Greenwashing is very real. So you have to read kind of behind the same to the due diligence part. You have to kind of know what that they're actually talking about. We're going to talk about greenwashing in a bit, if anyone's not familiar with that term. And then just the power that social entrepreneurship has when it's done right. So the impact it can actually have when it's just a part of your business model. Like it's not necessarily the selling point or the marketing point or the way that you attract all your customers, but it's ingrained in what you do from day one. So yeah, that's my piece on social entrepreneurship. I know it was a little bit of a tangent, but I thought it would resonate with some of you in the room. It was a really important lesson that I learned when I was first learning about it, but it also has like faults and there's things that are constantly changing. And I'm, not always, this is like what it was 10 years ago when I was an undergrad. But these brands are kind of always changing. So does anyone have thoughts or questions about that? But
I actually partnered with an organization, Social Toast, and we did a sticker drive.
Yeah.
And I 1,200 pairs of shoes.
Wow.
Shoes went to Haiti and Honduras. And sort of what you said, one of the big parts for what we talked about is the shoes, the ventures went to micro organizations to help raise capital.
Right.
Because a lot of manufacturers will come in, up these shoes, and then that market.
Right, right. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and that's a perfect example too of, it sounded like you had them donated or you collected them,
We
right?
collected and donated, yeah, school-wide, community-wide.
Where your goal isn't, Tom made a lot of money off Tom's, you know, like him and other people too. It wasn't just, I'm saying him because the name and it's easy, but like they didn't exploit, that's a very harsh word, but they took a product that they knew people were gonna buy, whereas if it's more of a donation or a drive and it's going to the right place, it's a completely different approach to people need shoes. That he knew people needed shoes. He wasn't wrong about that. It was just the initial kind of way of thinking he had all the answers was a little controversial for some people. So, thank you. Any other thoughts? Doesn't mean don't support Tom's. I just, it's a good lesson to learn to kind of dig a little deeper with brands. Yeah.
So in a business, you're growing and you're learning, right? So when Tom realized that that's not the right way to go about building shoes, why do you think they completely shifted their CSR part of business to like going to mental health
Yeah.
or something like that, instead of just admitting that, okay, whatever we did, it wasn't good, like,
Right.
we are learning. So now we're gonna partner with a local business and give out
And give
shoes,
shoes, yeah.
right? Like, why do you think Tom's decided to switch completely?
Right.
Instead of just staying on the same track, and businesses grow and make mistakes all the time.
Right,
So
right.
it's fine to like admit that that wasn't the perfect model and still continuing to do the right thing, you know?
Right. I wish I was like in those, I would love to have been a fly on the wall at like some of these discussions because I don't actually know why, but I think there was a lot of like backlash about it. And I almost think that I think for a while they did, because this is like Tom's is from a while ago. So I think there was a few years where they tried to shift and they tried to do the model better. And I don't want to speak for them, but I'm assuming it just like started off too wrong that they had to shift. So I think it is interesting too that like it's 1/3 of their profits now. So it's not even the way they were promoting it was buy one, give one. That's a 50-50, you know, like you buy something and someone gets one. But I don't think they could necessarily cost wise split it 50% profit wise. So I don't know all that went into it. But I feel like because they had to get away from like the shoes model profit wise, they couldn't give more than 1/3. And then they started looking at topic areas or things that would resonate with people. So I think the buy one, give one model has gone away a little bit, like in terms of like blasting it as a marketing campaign, like across all brands. So like Orby Parker has it, but it's not, their homepage does not say BOGO, you know, or whatever the acronym is. So I think in general, the social impact world has moved away from the buy one, give one, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if anyone else thinks they have some thoughts on it, but I think it just started in a way that it was really hard to kind of like fix it. And they also probably didn't have the connections they needed. Like Orby Parker now has expanded and grown a lot and they partner with a lot of different organizations, but they started with an organization called Vision Spring that had been doing this for years. So they had a partner from the beginning that was like, you're not telling us how to do it. We're going to tell you what we need and you're going to help us drive our impact up. I don't necessarily think Tom's had that because they were doing it on their own. I don't think they had their partner who was like, no, this is how you give shoes, you know, like what was the
Souls for souls.
Souls for Souls. So potentially a partner like that who's been doing it for years. I don't think Tom's had that. And I don't think people necessarily wanted Tom's on their side when there was all this bad precedent. So. But, all right, we are going to have a little break. And then we will come back and talk more about sustainable fashion. Okay.
Yeah, why do you know that?
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna dive back in. Thank you all for coming back on time and being ready. So sustainable fashion, some of you, I know you had another impact series where you talked about this a bit, and some of you might have different varying levels of experience with sustainable fashion, but I am gonna be honest, I hate this term. I think it doesn't tell you anything. I think it tells you something, but it doesn't ever tell you enough. It's very much of an umbrella term. It can hint at things, but also it can be like misinformation. It can be, oh, we're a sustainable fashion brand, but what does that actually mean? So I pulled a few of the first definitions that kind of come up online when you search sustainable fashion. This one talks about brands that have implemented sustainability at all stages of production. Okay, great, but what does that mean? Brands that not only reduce the impact on the environment, but also mindful of the people who work with and produce the garments. So that tells you a little bit more. Clothing that is designed, manufactured, distributed, and used in ways that are environmentally friendly. So this only talks about the environment. And then this one goes into more environmental issues around water consumption, contamination, energy emissions, chemical usage, waste creation. So these are all different definitions. They all work. They all tell you a little bit more about the term, but it still leaves a lot, for me, it leaves a lot of questions. This slide, probably a little overwhelming, but it shows all that can kind of fall under that umbrella term. So you can have the conscious consumerism mindset. You can shop secondhand. You can provide a living wage for the people that you employ with your brand. There's ethical fashion, green fashion, eco fashion, cruelty-free, vegan leather. I don't know if anyone has seen something for vegan leather.
Oh, I have.
That can be great because you might not want an animal product, but a lot of vegan leather is made out of plastic and synthetic materials, which can be worse for the environment. But also you have to kind of take your choice. Do you want the plastic or do you want to not have the animal product? So that's vegan leather is a whole other 2-hour session that we could talk about. And then there's all these certifications. There's I'm sure a lot of you have seen the B certified. That's a great thing to look out for. But there's also a lot of people who are B certified now who get different scores. So you could be B certified and you could be one of the best B certifications out there, or you could be on a lower scale, but you still have the certification. So having that is one step, but then knowing more about it is something else. Yeah.
What's a B certified?
So B certified is certification. I don't actually know when it first started, but it's come in popularity. Actually, my water's over there. That water is B certified. I bet there's something else in this room, I'm sure, that is B certified. It is a rigorous certification process. It's a cost, you have to pay for it. So depending on how much revenue you have and how many employees you have, how large your business is, you pay a certain amount. It's an annual fee. You have to get recertified, but it asks you all these questions about your environmental waste, what you pay your employees, what you do for your community, all of these different areas that kind of encompass the benefit, it stands for benefit that you might have on the world, and you get a score that comes from that. So you have to get a certain score to be certified, but then you can be one of the top tier certified businesses, or you can be a lower certified. So it is like a global stamp for a business that is doing good. Patagonia is a B certified business. There's a lot of big brands like Ben and Jerry's. There are some really big brands, and then you can be like a one person. I could go after a B certification with Shop Alexina if I wanted to. It would look a lot different. My process would look very different from a large company. But it does give some indication of, okay, this brand has gone through a level of rigorous like questions and analysis to know that they have some commitment to being positive. We had two questions, there one back there, and then I'll come to you.
So we at Maryland have a syntax club that's still being the last year. Basically, students will come together to certify, like help companies get these certification.
That's awesome.
And they really work with the city as well and just help business together. It's basically measuring the social impact, right, through different tactics.
Yeah.
From like law enforcement or working with employees, like the minimum wage is met, like everything is like there. And yeah, I still agree, but I think they're restarting it. Nicole was in it, Marina was in it.
Yeah, that's really cool because it's not easy. Like it's not I mean, get B certified. Like it's a really rigorous process, which you want because if you see that stamp, they've gone through it and they've taken a lot of effort to become certified. But I will caveat that with you, that can't be your only answer. You can't say, okay, they're B certified. I love them. I'm going to support them. It tells you something. It tells you they're working on an aspect of this. They understand that the world is shifting to more consumer products that have some impact or are at least aware of their environmental impact, but it doesn't give you the whole picture. That little stamp. Yeah. I think Tom's is B certified, Warwick Park is B certified. So like a lot of impact related large brands are, but it's a process and it's grown a lot. It's expanded a lot over the few years. Yes.
What is the eco stylist?
I don't know as much about this one actually, but I wanted to show that there are a lot of different things that tell different kind of stories. So like this FSC is for like forest and paper related things. So like a lot of times packaging of brands will have like the FSC stamp on it for if it was done in a what's the word, the rainforest, why can't I think of the word, but like if the wood was like chopped down in a forest that was like renewable and like done in a positive way. Hig index is like all around clothing and fashion. 1% for the planet is if you've committed to giving back 1% of all your profits to environmental programs. This is probably the one I know least about, so I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah.
So follow-up question, FSC, with Amazon being so big, would they be FSC?
I am gonna guess no, but they could have some boxes. You know how they now are shipping in like different boxes depending on the product. There might be some boxes they use that are FSC. So now that you've seen some of these, like you're gonna see them now all over the place. You're the B Corporation, you're gonna see it. If you go into grocery store like Whole Foods, a lot of the products there are B certified. Doesn't mean they're all great, but Whole Foods is probably looking out for that. So Amazon probably does that a little bit more in that space, but I bet they have some. I mean, they use a ton of boxes. I swear every time I get a new box, if I order something for Amazon, or no box, now they're doing like no box for some things. So, which is good, but so yeah, this is a little overwhelming, but it's meant to be that way to kind of just like show that a lot falls under this term. This just goes into a little bit deeper, the types of sustainable fashion that we have. The one I've been talking about a lot today is just like that individual choice and the consumer choices that you make. Are you renting something? Are you swapping it? Are you thrifting it? Are you extending the life cycle of an item? If a button falls off, do you throw it out or do you figure out how to fix it? These are all like individual choices. Beyonce is helping us learn more. You can either wear what you have or you can take care of what you have. Those are very sustainable ways to make those are options to make your closet a more sustainable closet. On the flip side, we have the brands and the business models. So they can be fair and ethical. They can say it's 100% organic cotton potentially. They can make, I love this like single batch or on demand, where they actually only make enough until it's sold, and then they wait until orders come in so that there's never inventory just kind of like sitting or waiting. And then again, Beyonce's helping us learn that don't have to overproduce, and you can also always pay a living wage, which is, you would think everyone would know to do that. It's not globally done around the world. So these are just a few examples of sustainable fashion. And then one more example. This is another wheel, again, just to kind of show this means a lot. Like, it can mean a lot of different things. It can mean a lot of different things to different brands or individual people, depending on what they want to kind of make it. The last piece on this is like the whole slow versus fast. So some people might know the term fast fashion, which are brands like H&M, Zara, Forever 21, large stores. You go into a Forever 21 today, and you go into a the same Forever 21 in a week, you're going to see a lot of new clothes. There's going to be a lot of new options. It's not going to be a lot of the things that were there. They are relying on you coming in, buying a shirt, spending $3 on it, maybe wearing it once, getting rid of it, going back, buying another shirt, spending $3 on it. It's very fast. Slow fashion, the opposite, and this is pretty long, but I thought this quote was really great. So I'll just point out some of the aspects of it, but it takes into consideration all aspects of the supply chain, and in doing so aims to respect people, the environment, and animals. It also means spending more time on the design process, ensuring that each piece is of quality made. So it's slow. They're not trying to rush anything. They're trying to do it with intentionality. Fast fashion has taught us that more is better, huge consumption, industries driving down quality. So it's not about quality, it's about quantity, and cheap garments that are not made to last. So the slow fashion is the exact opposite. It's creating mindful, curated collections based on quality finishes versus pumping out large quantities and seasonal trendy clothing. Slow fashion can be very expensive. There's a reality of this that it's not always accessible to everyone. There's versions of this that are different, where you swap and you thrift and you find clothes in different ways. You don't always have to be buying from a slow fashion brand. Because this approach, they're not making things at scale, it's going to be more expensive. So that's the reality of a lot of slow fashion brands. But in a moment, we're going to talk about the revolution that's happening. All right, quick time. This will not be stressful, I promise. But I'm going to put a question up here on the screen, and anyone can call out an answer. We'll see if I hear what it's going to be or what the answer is, but no need to raise your hand or anything. If you think you know the answer, feel free to call it out. How many pounds of clothing does the average American throw out each year? 30?
10 to 15.
10 to 15,
Maybe 45.
50, 25.
I'm going to go with 100.
100? 100's too high, but close.
65.
81 pounds. So this is the average American. Doesn't mean that everyone in the room is throwing out 81 pounds, but the average American is. $500 billion is lost each year because of underwearing or failure to recycle. So when you buy that shirt from Forever 21, you wear it once and you throw it out because you only spent $3 on it. It's going into the landfill. We're losing $500 billion a year because of that. And 90% of our clothing is thrown out before it needs to be. So we could be keeping that item for longer, or it could go to a friend, or it could go to someone else in our life, but we're throwing it out. I actually took this photo. So this isn't a stock image. It's from an organization called Fab Scrap, and they are in Brooklyn and in Philadelphia. Awesome organization. They collect and people donate materials to them that they're no longer using. You can send them clothes that are broken. Have you been there, or?
No, I'm saying so I can donate my jeans.
You could donate your jeans there. Exactly. Exactly. It's a great, so you can go on their website, you can figure out how to donate it. I think they accept things in the mail. If not, if you're ever in New York or Philly, they have drop-off locations. But you can also then go buy things from them. So they have a lot of fabric. They have bins of just like buttons. So like if the pants have rips in them, they take the button off of it and then you can buy the button. So they're taking apart garments that can't exist in their current use and finding different ways to use them. And then you turn a corner and this stressful pile, this is all their donations that they have to sort through at this one given time at this one location. So you can kind of see it on the side here, but there's all these tables where volunteers can come in, they're taking apart the items, they're sorting them, and then they get a discount on like purchasing it. So a lot of designers and people who are making clothes love to do this because then they can buy their materials for really cheap and it's all been repurposed and recycled and taken out of the landfill. So this is all meant to show 81 pounds. This is one organization. They're not even that large. They've grown a lot and they're really cool. I would definitely recommend looking them up. But all right, how many pieces of clothing does Zara produce each year? Zara alone.
123 million.
123 million, 1 billion?
Yeah.
A little less than 1 billion, but 300 million, 800 million is very close. 840 million garments, Zara alone. So there's tons of Zaras, you know, there's other brands that are similar to Zara. 840 million garments. As I was talking about fast fashion brands, you go into one store, you go in a week later, it's going to be new material. We used to have summer, spring, 4 seasons, the winter, spring, summer, and fall. We now have 52 seasons because of fast fashion brands. So they're constantly creating new designs and pumping out garments. And then this one I love because it's a nice surprise for all of you. You can all go shopping in your closet if you want to. There's 20% of our closet is used. So I wear this thing all the time. I love this. I get a lot of use out of it. I have things in my closet that I've worn once that I don't use often. 50% of our closet goes untouched completely. So there's a lot that we actually already own that is in our house or in our apartment or wherever we live that is accessible to us. Yes.
Like I realized when I was coming to college, I was like, I haven't seen this shirt in forever.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah,
no.
there's a lot of that. And sometimes it means something to us. It was a gift or it's sentimental. Doesn't mean you have to get rid of those items you don't touch, but it's important to acknowledge it. And if there is something there that you know you're never going to wear again, that you don't need, maybe you let go of it, or you give it to a friend or you find some other use for it. All right, our last question is what percentage of US executives admit their companies are guilty of greenwashing?
2%. 0%. 30%.
2%.
41%. 0.
68% admit it. At least they're honest. It's good they're honest. Yeah, this one is a little conflicting because it's great that they're honest, but it's also a really high number. And there's also other people who aren't being honest. So I almost feel like this could be, yeah, like this number is more to just talk about greenwashing, honestly, but it's there. 68% of US executives are saying, yeah, at some point we said something that wasn't really true. And greenwashing, for anyone that's not familiar with this term, it's about typically marketing, but also other reports and kind of just like admitting to something that says something might be greener than it actually is. Greener meaning positive for the environment, good for your wages, has an impact in some way. So there's 6 types of this. There's the fibbing, where it's just like actually completely false and they're lying to you. There's vagueness, where they kind of don't really tell you all the terms. We're a sustainable fashion brand. Okay, great. But what does that mean? The vagueness of just saying something. The lesser evils, if there's something actually worse happening, they're trying to distract you from that. This irrelevance one, I think is really interesting, especially in food, which is a completely different topic, but there's a lot of things now that say like gluten-free, and it's like always been gluten-free. It's like rice is gluten-free, but rice never had gluten in it. So there's a lot of like product placement now and marketing around this that are trying to get someone to purchase it because it's more green or has impact or, has something like that. So greenwashing is real. Yes.
So with all the certifications earlier, do any of those like prove that a company is not greenwashing?
I wish there was one that does, but a lot of them the thing about certifications is there's like, I think there's over like 600 different types of certification. So a lot of them will like narrow in on a certain thing. Like there's LEED, LEED is like for buildings. So LEED certification is like, some of them are more rigorous than others. Some of them are like, is your material 100% cotton? Yes, but it doesn't tell you anything about your wages, you know, so there's always this like, you have to take it all with a grain of salt. You have to like know what it's telling you and not think it's telling you something else. But I don't know of one that says no to greenwashing. We're gonna get into some of these like reports with a discussion, but if you want to start one, that would be great because I think it exists. There's a,
I was just gonna say, I have a shirt from H&M from like years ago that says on the back of it, like the shirt was ethically made.
Right.
I think it's pretty cool.
It's what?
I think it's crazy because obviously it's
not, yeah. And also like, what does that mean? Like,
I don't
you know,
know.
yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
So thanks H&M, but that tells us so. But yeah, so it's out there and it doesn't mean that people aren't doing good. There's a lot of companies and businesses that are doing really amazing work and are doing things with intentionality and supporting the right people. But it just means that there's a lot that are trying to tell us they are when they might not be. So it's an interesting time to be a consumer and purchasing all of this. So I know a lot of this is like a little bit heavy and depressing, and it's sad that our clothing industry is the second biggest polluter in the world, second to oil, and it's a huge, you know, global issue, but there is a lot of amazing work happening behind the scenes. And one of them is this organization called Fashion Revolution. So they are campaigning passionately for clean, safe, fair, transparent, and accountable fashion industry. They believe in a global fashion industry that conserves and restores the environment and values people over growth and profit. So the reason I asked our volunteers to come up at the beginning and talk a little bit about their clothes is the Fashion Revolution. People started this campaign called Who Made My Clothes? And the whole point behind it was that every garment we're all wearing today in this classroom, there is a human behind it and there's someone who made it somewhere in the world. And we need to know more about that story. A lot of big brands don't like to talk about their supply chain. They don't like to go further and further back because it usually gets worse and worse the further you go. So being able to hold brands accountable, a lot of brands ignored this completely and didn't want to be involved, but a lot of brands started to recognize that they need to be transparent. They need to disclose this information. And it all started because of an incredibly sad event that happened in 2013, but a factory in Bangladesh called Rana Plaza collapsed. So there were some really big brands working out of there. I think Walmart was there. There was a lot that like pretended they had nothing to do with it, but did have workers there. And the entire building collapsed and over 1,000 people lost their lives and 2,000 people were injured. So it was huge, huge, huge catastrophe. And there were signs that the building wasn't safe. Like people knew they shouldn't be sending people in there and they just ignored it and kept creating products and making things. So this is what Fashion Revolution came from. So the two founders who launched this campaign. And again, they're working on fairer, safer, more transparent fashion industry. So I really like what they talk about. I definitely recommend following them and checking out their work. A lot of it is around campaign and awareness. So some of it is like changing your practices, but a lot of it is just about like holding brands accountable and making sure that they can't just get away with, this was obviously huge global news. Everyone knew about this, but there's things that are happening on a daily basis where people aren't being fed or being properly cared for or being given the right wages. So definitely check out Fashion Revolution. All right, so I'm going to go through just like a few resources for everyone, and then we're going to break for our discussion. But I do want to leave you with some ideas. So again, this is not for everyone. I know some of you may leave the room and never remember this presentation or think about it again. Some of you might be really excited about this. Some of you might not be convinced yet and need a little bit more, but some ideas, you can try secondhand September. You don't have to necessarily wait for September. You could do it next month. You could say, you know what, I'm not going to buy anything new for a month. I'm going to shop secondhand and see how it goes. You could host or attend a clothing swap. These are really fun. You get all your friends together. You say, okay, on Friday at 5 p.m., we're going to meet at this part of the campus. We're going to bring all our clothes that we're not wearing and we're going to swap. Usually it's like 1 for 1. If you bring 5 items, you can take 5 items. People do them all differently, but they're really great events. It's really fun way to kind of hang out with each other, but also like just exchange clothes and not keep them in your closet if you're not using them. If you've never mended anything, I highly recommend adding a button to something, or if you know there's a small tear or something that you need to fix, you can YouTube it. This is obviously a little bit harder, but there are very simple things you can do to fix a piece of clothing that you might think is done or should be, you know, donated or go to the landfill because it's broken in some way. And you will care for it a lot more. It will remind you of it and you'll feel more connected to that item, I promise you. Now you know that 50% of your closet is untouched. You can go shopping in your own closet. That could be a fun activity. You can support local brands, which can be hard to find sometimes and can be a little bit more expensive, but it's really always nice to like connect with a local designer or connect with someone who might be making clothes nearby. And then the last 2 are just buying with intention. So if you know you have 10 pairs of jeans, you don't need a new pair of jeans, but you're really lacking a black t-shirt, go out and find the black t-shirt when you shop. Don't buy another pair of jeans when you're out. And if you read the care labels on your clothes, they're there for a reason. They tell you how to wash them. If it says dry cleaning, you don't necessarily need to go get it dry cleaned, but putting it on hang drying things that should be hang dried will reduce pilling, will reduce you know, the wear and tear of an item. So figuring out how to kind of care for your clothes will make them last. These are my last reminders of kind of taking this away. These are my favorite things about sustainability and clothing and how we approach it. But the most sustainable piece of clothing is one that's already in your closet. So even if it is from a fast fashion brand or it wasn't, if there's something about it that isn't necessarily deemed, like your H&M shirt that was ethically made, the fact that you own it makes it more sustainable than going to buy an actually ethically made shirt. And then love clothes last. If you are connected to your clothes, if you have some kind of like experience buying it or intentionality in purchasing it, or if it's you're thrifting and you find something that you absolutely love and it's a surprise because you didn't know it was going to be there, it's going to mean more to you. These are all my personal things. You don't have to take these with you, but I think that they can be helpful kind of as we talk about this. I'm hoping James can give you all this presentation because the next few slides are just like resources. So hopefully you can get these slides or you can take a quick photo, but these are all really great for buying secondhand online. So if you don't want to go to a thrift shop, if that doesn't interest you, but you are interested in purchasing secondhand, ThredUp and Posh. ThredUp is a great for like, actually, I think ThredUp is only women's clothing. So I will make that note, but all the other ones have all types of clothing. Poshmark and Depop are apps. You can use it from your phone. You can also sell clothing on it really easily. eBay is awesome. Facebook Marketplace is the best thing ever for furniture, household items, buying anything. You're going to save a lot of money doing that if you're not shopping and buying new furniture. Sometimes it's a little bit worn, but you can usually find some awesome gems. These are books that you can read if you're interested. These are resources for vetting brands. If you're interested in a brand that you've maybe never heard of or you want to know more about them, these both have accountability scoring and they tell you a lot. They've done a lot of research for you, so you can quickly kind of look up the brand and learn more. And then my friend in the front here, we've talked a lot about this, but donating clothes. There's another one called the 4 days where they literally send you a bag and you send it back to them. It's really good for scraps or things that aren't wearable anymore. You can always donate to local secondhand shops and boutiques as well. These are certifications. There's a lot of certifications, but you can do a little bit more digging on these. There's a website down at the bottom that tells you about each one. You can look out for these. These are all for sourcing or environmental aspects. These are all about animal welfare. these are all about labor standards. So again, someone might have the fair trade, but then they don't have one of these. So it means a lot of different things, but they do indicate that that company has gone through a certain level of investigation to get this certification. If you're active on social media, here are a ton of accounts you can follow. And yeah, all right. Any questions before we go into our discussion parts?
So this is not really off topic, but I've had this leather jacket passed down to my grandfather, to my mom, to me. And I want to make sure that it is actually, because it means a lot to me sentimentally.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it goes to the right place. Is there, I know you said Miami, so I'm fine with going to Miami. Is there places that you would trust that would be able to take care of an antique like leather jacket?
You want to give it, you don't
Like,
wear it?
I
You
know,
wanna-
I want it, sorry, I should have said there are rips in it.
Oh,
on
you
the
want it,
sleeve, and I want to
okay.
get it repaired. Is there certain places that are like
Yeah,
big or like mom and pop shops that you think that could fix it?
I can get your name after and your contact and probably send you a few. I don't know any up here.
Okay.
But there are definitely places, and I would go small. I would find someone who, but that's awesome that you want to like
Yeah.
continue it and keep it going. 'Cause I
Sorry,
feel like-
I did it, but I eventually, I live in Florida.
Right,
so my-
you don't wear it off.
I'll give it to my kid.
Right, you want to keep it for that. That's okay. Oh, yeah. All right, so we're gonna count off in a moment, but I'm gonna just kind of explain the worksheet and the next few steps. We're gonna count off 1 through 6. The next slide, I'll show the 6 brands that we're working with. If your group collectively wants to do a different brand, you 100% can do that. I just want you to discuss internally and kind of choose together, but I've given a brand to each group so that you don't have to sit around trying to think of one if you want to use the one that's up there. So I just ask that if you pick a new brand, don't repeat one of the ones that's on the next slide. Because we're going to break out into groups. You're going to fill out these worksheets and then you're each going to pick someone from the group to kind of present on what you found. So I want you to take all that you learned today, all that you know from outside of this classroom, start to really dive into the brand, look for things like certifications, Google if they have news around their sustainability efforts, look at their sustainability report. The next slide I'll put up is some of the resources, but you can look at the Good On You app to see if they're rated on that. So really just kind of do some digging about the brands, and then each group is going to pick one person to kind of present the brand, share what they found, and go from there. So let's count off first, and then I'll show the brands. So if we could just start here. 1, 2,
6.
7, 1, sorry.
1.
2, 3,
3.
5,
1,
2, 3, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3,
4,
5,
1, 2,
3,
4,
5, 6,
2.
3,
4, 4, 3, 5, 6. All right, and you. 2, 3, 4. All right, we'll do the 1s, we'll do the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, the 5s, the 6. And these are your brands. Guys.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 3, 6. Here, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
1 to here, 1 to over here, 2 to here.
I'm sorry.
We all want.
3 is where I am. 3. That's a 4. 3. That's a 5. That's a
Say like, how are 2 all here? Yeah, there, I like looked at you, I'm like, I'm like, yeah. I just stared at you and I'm like, good. Like, I don't know what just happened. You're getting it. All right. What's your name?
You know what I said? Reading,
You everything.
Side.
You're.
No, you're good. It's like.
Oh, I didn't
You know.
Yeah.
I just. You're actually planning on-
I die laughing. What's the? Yeah. No, like.
So we have to find.
Honestly.
And then, that's what's where I have. Website. Have a look on the website for that stuff. I got one of You got the. It says right here, the most. Question breaking with that. On that. I'm gonna look at the website for,
How many pages?
So they like.
It's one person who's gonna do it. Yeah, my hands are. I can't. Thank you. I should open up. They're put on the product. Yeah, let me look. So what am I? Stand up.
They do have a section on sustainability, and then they also have a section for buying secondhand. So would you say?
It's too big of a document for me.
Say it.
It's like you have to download.
Goals.
Yeah.
Let me read a bit more.
I mean, it must be big because.
Look at the.
Honestly, I was just gonna say.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, like I don't even like what type of computer? Okay, that's like all that.
That environment, they grab an environment.
So they include goals.
Where did you find that?
Okay.
The entire thing, they have like all the sustainability goals. Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry.
It does say on their actual website. it does
Yeah,
say
what are we to do with that?
It's like,
So they're recording. So yes to both those. Is there an answer?
The answer is yes, they have environmental. I just see like impact.
Yeah, I can't open it.
this is good.
How do you tell that they never know? I do see social, they, it's like different communities that we try and, out. Imagine what that means, corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility basically means that the corporation has like an obligation to be like saying the violence. Yeah, like fair workers. I would say yes to all of this stuff. Now, the next question is, I don't want to say how much do I believe them? Deep on multiple pages.
They have 265.
Yeah, eight, but how do you guys think? I feel like the violent aspect of they're one of the most. Should we put it higher then? I would say nine. Okay. Did not see that.
I think it's the little thing they put on the sustainability disclosure, they put hookups there on it.
My grandma's an attorney, so I like to see everything like in a week, like I wanna see like an affidavit. Yeah. They have a bunch of rankings. I was ranked by a 74-year-old.
It's like fair trade. Yeah.
We were next one, I know.
5 more minutes. 5 more minutes.
We have no class this
They were
Monday.
way more,
We have half
than I thought they were. I didn't think they would have that much.
10 in the.
I don't know if there's really, I don't know.
It needs to be like certification somewhere, like, it would be, if they had certification, they would put it on. So that's what they would.
I know. Yeah, I know, so just like this. I keep the risk. You saw that, yeah. But it's yeah. Meaning income. What are you saying? Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, that's more something that you would have so like when they try to express what they want to do.
It's like a. That's so fun.
Well, you look more into it, not, like I said, I had no idea that Levi's would be that much and had them on their. You could do like. Pretty obvious. And then you could make your decision based on either way you have on Levi, and not saying like you don't have a way, that's just gonna be more like don't start going that way. But be more cautious of where you shop and how much you shop. Even if you're shopping like that stuff, if you're buying. Yeah, like don't just like talk yourself out and be like, I still buy new things. You know, keep what you have, take care of what you have, and then when you do need to get rid of stuff, you'll have a properly or how to turn. Yeah. Oh, like, have you applied for education? Like the ones that she like pulled up on the, I took pictures of them. Hold on.
The whole thing.
I always look we were literally doing the outro and you walked.
Oh, yeah, look, it says on Levi straw from named to class company
You'd be like, oh.
She made a list of sustainable actions they think they can, like, if they have any of like these.
Okay, right, that's fine. It's like, okay, but what about?
They have it in the actual ISO. What's the shorter name? Products or whether they're in yeah.
I do that. Gender
Well, you're my child.
Gracias. Obrigado. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's start with group number one. Whoever is presenting, if you could, you don't have to stand on stage, but you're allowed to if you want, or you can come to the front, stand where you are in the room, whatever you're comfortable with. Group number one is who's presenting.
Oh, did you want me to stand?
Yeah, you can stand where you are, or if you want to come up, whatever works for you.
So we didn't get to the back of the page, but while looking at Levi's, they do have a sustainability report. And their most recent report was from 2021, and they have 265 pages. Do they use a third-party accountability entity to certify any of the information? No, as far as we saw. Does the report include any goals? Yes, and if they are reporting on their progress, yes, they are. So the brand, one of the questions was, do they have any information on environmental, social governance, CSR, or any impact? Yes, most definitely. We found a lot of pages on their environmental impact and on what they feel like is their corporate responsibility. And on a scale of 1 to 10 of if we believed it was true, we said 9. It felt very trustworthy. They had a lot of information. And then they did have a certification that we didn't really understand what it was. It was a really long and lengthy title. It was like green activities and the international whatever. And then it was a certification, however, it wasn't one that we really knew of, but yeah, that's what we got.
Thank you. Does anyone in the Levi's group want to add something they saw or something they want to speak about? I think Levi's is really interesting because they are huge. They're a huge brand. But they do a lot of work for sustainability, and denim is historically one of the most water intensive products to create because it's very cotton based. So the fact that they are starting to work on this, I think is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that they were as specifically targeting certain things that a lot of companies try to avoid, like the fact that you said that it takes a lot of water. They're actively working towards using less water. So I thought that was cool that there was an article on that and just other things that most people don't have targeted.
Yeah. There's a lot of knockoff Levi's out there. So that's also part of it. A lot of people sell authentic Levi's, and then there's a lot of brands that tell you they're selling Levi's, but it's not necessarily Levi's, and it's not following all the things that Levi's trying to do as a brand. So awesome. Group number 2, H&M. Who is presenting? Oh, that's you guys, right? You guys have a few people? Okay.
So I'll just say it.
Okay.
So we did H&M, and does X-Brand have a sustainability report? Yes. What year is the most recent report? 2021. How many pages is the report? 118. Did they use a third-party accrediting entity to certify any of their information? Yes, which was FSC.
Okay.
Does the report include goals? Yes. Are they reporting on their progress? Yes. Does X-Brand have a dedicated page on its website that shares information on ESG? Yes, it does, and it's mainly on sustainability.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think this is true? I gave it like a 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Because it's fast fashion. Like, there's only so much sustainability that could be, you know what I mean? And does X-Brand have any certifications? And yes, it does. And I think it's Cradle is the only one that I could find.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we got together. Yeah.
So some of the questions too on this worksheet and why we're asking them, the pages, like Levi's 200, you said 265 pages. Who has time to read that? Like, that's insane. There's probably a lot of great information in that, but it also could be that they're trying to make it look impressive because they're saying a lot of things, but like, what are they actually saying? If that report was, they had to make 10 pages long, like, I wish that they had to cap their reports where like, you had to say a certain amount of things in a certain amount of pages to answer those questions for consumers. You don't have time to read. No one's ever gonna read 265 pages, 100 and something. Like, these reports are really long. So like looking for those other cues, are they using third parties? Are they bringing in more people to help kind of show a lot of people set goals? And then we obviously didn't have time to do it today, but if you read 2021 and then you read 2022, did they change their goals? Did they meet their goals? You know, it's really interesting to compare the reports, but a lot of people look at one singular report for 1 year. All right, number 3, Eileen Fisher. Yes.
Hi guys, so for Eileen Fisher, thought my research team could conduct, we have a brand that does have a sustainability report from 2020. It had 30 pages and couldn't really find specific third-party entities, but it was B certified, so it had that certification, and does include a report their goals and report their progress, although we still thought it was like a little bit suspicious, so we gave it a 6 on the rating comp. We thought it was true, just because even though it might on the website look like maybe like it's all fancy, might be an 8, whatever, still think that in reality it's always lower than what they show off. And it does have a page dedicated to what's like environmental impact based work they do, like they have a page for the environmental side, there, I think there was like 3 categories. It looked like something worth looking into. I've never actually heard or seen the brand before today, but that was basically what we got in a few minutes. And then on the back, I didn't answer any of the questions, but what are buzzwords?
So
Are they using any buzzwords?
a great example is like the H&M shirt that was ethical. Like, are they trying to be like, we're green, we're eco, we're like that slide that was kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
Some of these brands, all of these brands are massive, like,
Yeah.
but are they using words that mean things like ethical and,
It's
you know,
exaggerated.
yeah, so
Yeah.
can H&M actually be sustainable? Their business model is not
Yeah.
sustainable, but if they're using the word, they're trying to hint at something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, in that case, probably not. Enjoy. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, number 4.
Cool. So we have Primark, which we realize like it's not a really big franchise here in the US as it is in Europe. It's an Irish brand, but it's very, very popular like in the UK. We figured out the closest we could peg it to price point wise, and maybe like 22, like Forever 21 over here. I don't know where men shop, so I don't know what you guys. Does the brand have, so yes, they have a sustainability report from the year 2021 to 2022, 57 pages, very pretty report. They do have third-party accrediting done by the OECD due diligence guidance for responsible business conduct. They have goals in the reports. They have progress, like very clearly outlined progress reports. They have a dedicated page on the website or Primark Affairs. That's what they call the whole branch that's responsible for that. How much do we think is true? Most of us, we can't sell on the 6 because they are big enough to lie.
Yeah.
Properly, but then they're also big enough to do something about it. But again, it's like H&M. It's really big. They produce so much. Is it really possible to become sustainable? Yeah. So we give them a 6. Do they have any certifications? Yep. They have Cotton Connect, which is supposed to, it's a sustainable cotton program for the farmers that produce the cotton that they use. They are cradle to cradle certified product standard called C2C, which is they're supposed to make sure that every part of the process from sourcing the materials, like putting it on the shelves, is not harming the planet in any way. And then their own, like their home brand makeup products are now cruelty-free. It said they had vegan certification. We agreed we do not believe that because it could probably be 1 item out of 10, and that's what they like to do. They're not lying, but it's very far from it. That's about it. They have vegan washing. Well, we don't know, but they are big enough to have it. So yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Right. I think group number 5. Yeah.
So instead of doing reformation, we chose Doc Martens instead because like some of us wear them, so we want like research that brand instead. Their most recent sustainability report is 2022. It has 272 pages. Third-party accrediting or certification, none that we saw because it's very long. Do they have goals? Yes. Are they reporting on their progress? Yes. On their website, they only have a page for sustainability. I didn't see anything for like impact or ESG and CSR. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think this is true? We said like a 7 because 2 of their goals were 100% sustainable packaging by 2028, and then 100% sustainable by 2040. So like that's a big gap from now for them to like be fully sustainable. So that's like, yeah. And then no certifications that we saw.
Thank you for picking that brand because they have a really interesting product where their shoes, if anyone owns, does anyone own a pair of Doc Martens? You guys said you own some,
We
yeah.
all do, yeah.
They are built to last. Like you buy a pair of Doc Martens, you're gonna have it your whole life.
That's what I
So,
was gonna talk
yeah.
about, because we're like, oh, it's a sustainable shoe.
Right.
The way that it is, but it's.
Right.
Because they were pretty sus about how it's made. in terms of-
yeah. So that's like perfect example of like the choice you make as a consumer. Okay, but I know this is gonna last me, where if I buy a leather boot at Forever 21, it's gonna last me 1 year and I'm gonna throw it out, so do you want to kind of buy something that's a higher price point, it's gonna last you forever, or do you kind of go the more cheaper option that might, not be made well? So it's a great example. All right, our final group 6.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we had Athleta, but on their website, we couldn't find anything about the sustainability report until we found out that it's a company within the Gap Corporation.
Right.
And then we did find it. The latest report was from 2021. The entire Gap Inc. Report was 72 pages, but the Athleta section was 3. In terms of third-party accrediting, we didn't find anything. They do include goals, and they include their progress on the goals. And then the entire document with I guess information on ESG. We rated it a 6, just because it's a big company within a bigger company. So it could go either way. But Athleta itself is a B. It's a B Corp certified business. They also have fair trade certification. They use buzzwords like fair trade, not necessarily so much on environmental or ethical.
Right.
And then the good on you rating it, they said it's a start, so 3 out of 5. That's about it.
Awesome. Great. Thank you all so much for doing that research. Hopefully you took something away from this. I think sustainability reports are really interesting. I tend to love to read. I'd never read the full amount, but I think it's cool to see what different brands do. You have to take it all with a grain of salt, but things like the Good On You app, if you didn't get to that point in the worksheet, it really is interesting. It does 1 through 5, so it's not too complicated, but then it goes into like transparency and environment and people, and it really breaks it down. So that can always be like a quick, I need to learn about this brand pretty quickly and I don't want to read 265 pages. It's a really great resource. So I don't know where my clicker went. I think I put it over there. Thank you. I have one very last slide, and it is just about connecting. So I know I was only here for a few hours, but I would love to stay connected with you all. If you have questions outside of the conversation today, feel free to connect with me on any one of these platforms. I am in Miami, but I'm around in South Florida, so hopefully I'll be at more events in the future. So thank you so much.
So, yes, I wanted to thank you for taking your time to share your knowledge with us, the Washington community, on how you started your business, your clothing brand, Alexina, and different business models integrated within the sustainable fashion sector, as well as what is ethical fashion. So we just wanted to thank you again for that, and thank you for helping us come up with creative ways to practice circular fashion within our day-to-day lives. So at Watson, we do something where we protect your courage.
Oh,
Thank you.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I didn't expect this.
Well, thank you so much, Alexina. I think even personally, hello, hi. I think even personally, I think just sitting through your course and hearing about this subject from a more expansive perspective was very beneficial. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for protecting our courage. And the cape looks good on you.
Thank
Matches
you.
your outfit too. So right now we will go outside, take a quick group photo. And thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you for engaging. One more thing, if you have my pen, please return my pens. Thank you so much, and I'll see you. No, thank you.
Did someone lose their phone?
I did.
Okay.
I didn't lose it.
Everybody.
Yes, because it's long. If only roughly because it's long.
Thank you.
My pens, thank you. Thank you.
Let's begin.
Thank you.
And I just want
Thank you. Eddie, I know where you sleep. In my bed. I even know where you sleep. Maybe somewhere in my bed.
just behind the computer, and I literally did. I just bought
My pens, thank you.
and then